is so bad. Oh my god. And I showed this work during my interview. Daily UX Writing Challenge is one of the most popular design challenges amongst content design professionals. In fact, as of today, there are about more than 12,000 people who have participated in this design challenge. So if you haven't watched my previous video, you know that this design challenge was pivotal to landing my first content design role at Microsoft. It's been about 4 years since I've completed the challenge, so today I'm going to react to some of the challenges I've done in the past and offer some tips for you if you're doing this for the first time. If you're new here, hi, my name is Yvonne and I'm a content designer in tech. I make YouTube videos like this to help you understand what content design is all about. So if you're interested, hit that subscribe button and follow along the journey. I am very scared to look at my old work. I don't know what to expect. It's been too long, but there's no more escape. Let's get into it. All right, a very quick rundown on how this design challenge works. You sign up to the challenge using your email and then you get one prompt or one question per day and you will work on the challenge, and if you'd like, you can submit that to the Facebook group for people to give feedback on. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go back to the Facebook group where I published all of my design challenges and look at them. This is fine. I already have this queued up. Let's go back to the very first one. It's cute that I wrote like a little disclaimer in the Facebook post because genuinely I was so scared that people gonna roast me. I don't think I was prepared for that, you know? So I wanted to like soften the tension in case I did a terrible job. The scenario is a traveler is in an airport waiting for the last leg of flight home when their flight gets abruptly canceled due to bad weather. And your challenge is to write a message from the airline app notifying them that a cancellation and what they need to do next. You have 45 characters for the headline, 175 characters max for the body, and 25 characters max for the buttons. A lot of people had questions about the character count, the space count, the punctuation counts. They all count. So don't even think you can get away with writing more. That's your space constraint and you just have to work with it. All right, let's look at the challenge. Oh, look at this little mock-up. This is so cute. Honestly, girl, like this is not bad. Good job. I really like that it's really easy to scan with like the bad news section, the good news section. I also like that it's pretty empathetic. I have been in the shoes of this user in the past. I get screwed over by air companies like this all the time and it is so irritating. A few things I would have done differently. One thing is to figure out the spelling of canceled. Here I used 2 L's. But in a lot of American writing context, canceled uses only 1 L. It all depends on your company and the stylistic choice that you choose, but staying consistent with it is pretty important. So I would recommend doing that. Plus it saves you 1 character count. These little character counts, they matter when you have so much space constraint. Speaking of space constraint, another thing I would have done is to use contractions. So instead of you are, you can use your, of course with the apostrophe. This can save you a few character counts as well. Plus, it can sound a bit more conversational. Another thing I would have changed is the usage of ASAP here. I know that this is pretty commonly used in the American English context, but if someone is using this app for the first time and they are not an English native speaker, this could be potentially difficult for them to comprehend. And this could also mean that there could be localization issues when you're scaling this product to a global audience. But this is not bad. This is not bad. I think I can do this. Hey, moving on. Let's look at day 2, shall we? A user is a working parent and a big sports fan. In the midst of their favorite sports season, who can no longer attend games. Your challenge is to write a promotional screen for an app that lets users choose teams, send game reminders, real-time score updates, and highlight videos. You have 40 characters max for headline, 175 characters max for the body, and then 25 characters max for the buttons. Okay. I see what we're working with here. Before I go into more in this particular design challenge, I also get questions a lot about the format of how these design challenges should be. Should it just be text? Should I do design? What should I do about it? And here's what I think. As a content designer, understand design and how it works with content coherently is very crucial. So if I were to do this challenge, I would always steer for at least some level of mid-fidelity mockup. Whether you do it through Figma, which I would recommend doing that, or doing it in a really hacky way, as you can see here. I pretty much just took a screenshot on Spotify and erased all the words in Instagram story and then put in the new words by myself. As long as you're doing some kind of mockup, I think one, it really helps you understand the content in the context of informational architecture. And on the other part, people are more drawn to pictures to begin with. You're gonna have a way better time getting responses from people in the group if you have a mockup. I wish I utilized the opportunity to get myself more familiarized with Figma, but it's not too late for you. You should do that. You should really do that. You know, honestly, this one is not too bad either, but keep me honest here, sports fans and working parents. Let me know if you have any criticism towards this one as well. I had a hard time feeling empathetic towards the user because I am personally not in that category. But based on the lack of my knowledge, this is not too bad. A few things I would have changed. Number one, capitalization and the consistency of it. As you can see in this one, I had all caps for the headline, which is a lot. When you see all caps, it does feel like someone is yelling at you. And that was a cultural difference that I was not aware of as someone who's learning English as a second language. So be aware of that. As you can see, the CTAs, the button themselves as well, download now was in title case, even though the body copy was in sentence case, and then you have the headline being all caps. Some companies might have this as an intentional stylistic choice, but most of the tech companies are choosing to stick with sentence case because it's more natural to read. It feels like you're reading a magazine or someone's text message. Is a little bit easier to consume. So I would choose one style and stick with it, with slight preference on using sentence case consistently. Just make sure to not use all caps because we don't need to be yelling at anyone. Let's look at another one. Let's try this one. I am being very biased here because I'm only picking the ones that are cute. The user works in graphic design. While critiquing a design in a mobile app, their phone abruptly turns off. When they restart the phone, they open the app. Your challenge is to write a message that the user will read immediately upon opening the app. What do they need to know? What steps, if any, do they need to take to recover their content? What if they can't recover the content? You have 40 characters for the headline, 140 characters for the body, and 20 characters for the buttons. Oh, I particularly mentioned that this was a tough one, so let's see how I did. So we're still having some of the capitalization issues here, but I think I didn't realize it until someone pointed it out during a later stage of my design challenge, so we won't cover that again. Okay, I see that I wrote two versions of it to account for the two different scenarios, say if their work was successfully recovered versus not. But you will realize very soon working in a product team that a lot of the times we cannot predict that. Your engineers cannot predict that, your product manager cannot predict that. And you have to write some error messages or some scenarios in between, you know, good old error messages. You love them, you hate them, you make fire remixes of them. So yeah, one thing I wish I would have done is to write another version of it where it accounts for both of the scenario, where it's generic enough to cover both the work being recovered and the work not being recovered. I like the format of saying what happened and what is going on right now. I think it added a lot of reassurance, even if the user is only scanning this content. And for the scenario where the work didn't get recovered, I like that it's empathetic enough where it provided some level of appeasement in the end. There are good chances that your product team would not align on just providing users 6 months of free subscription. It could be potentially a big L for the business, but I was very idealistic in that scenario. You're gonna run into situations where people were just like, no, we're not doing that. Now, phone being turned off could be both the user's problem and the system's problem. It's really hard to tell where that is. And the etiquette of saying sorry or apologizing is a very delicate issue that a lot of content designers tend to dive into as companies are establishing their own style guides. And you'll see in a lot of companies will have guidelines where, oh, unless this is 100% our system's fault, we're not going to apologize. When you apologize a lot, even to situations that is not necessarily your fault, the apologies start to become weakened and you start to lose that trust trust between the users and yourself as the people writing for these products. Just something to be aware of. Now, these secondary CTAs, I don't like them. I don't like them at all. I don't know what they do. I wish there's also an X button at the top right corner as an escape path for the users, because not everyone reads through it and not everyone interacts with it. When you're doing these design challenges, make sure that you're thinking beyond that single screen that you're going to present the work of. Think about the entire user flow. How did they get to the screen right there? And where does these buttons take them to? What's their next steps? Thinking about the user flow and going beyond the single screen can help inform a lot of your design decisions. And I would highly recommend you doing that. I realized that there's like at least 10 more challenges that I've done. And I don't want to spoil this challenge for you if you have never done this. Let's react to one last one and then I'll share some of my final thoughts. Why don't we look at the last one I've done? Let's see some growth. I think back when I did it, it didn't have the day 15 one. Right now it's a 15-day one, but I only did it to day 14. I'm still getting nervous looking at this, even though like it is my past work. I didn't know anything about content design. I gotta be a little easier on myself, you know? Day 14. Oh, what's generally the guideline rules for using emoji in UX writing? That is so funny that I had this question back in 2019 because I ended up writing the emoji guidelines for my company's style guide. So I eventually dived into the usage of emoji and I learned so much from it. But I had no idea that I had this question in the past. Scenario: a user is shopping using a price comparison app that boasts real-time pricing on items. As they're checking the price for an item, something goes wrong, the problem is unknown. Challenge: write a message that informs the user that they cannot access the app right now. You cannot specify why the app doesn't work. You also want them to continue using the app. You have 30 characters max for headlines, 100 characters for body copy, and then 15 characters for the buttons. This is not good. Oh my god. And I showed this work during my interview. How did I even get a job? This is unacceptable work. This is so bad. Okay, where do I even start? This error message, it is not helpful. It infuriates me reading from a user's perspective because it is not helpful. I don't know what has happened. I don't know what am I supposed to do next. The CTA itself is very ambiguous. Imagine being the only developer in, let's say, a startup and getting you thrown under the bus for any error messages. Like, that sucks. I would not want to do that. I am so sorry. This is not good. What else do I not like about this? RIP. Using abbreviations, not a good idea. It is hard to localize. It's kind of dooming. I don't like that. I don't think I reviewed the prompt. I talked about check back later. Are there offline features that you can utilize while things are getting sorted out? Because the goal is to have them continue using the app, right? I don't talk about that. So clearly I didn't read the prompt very well. The tone of it, it's trying too hard. Like, she really thought she did something. Being funny, being humorous, it's a very tricky thing when it comes to UX writing. I think good UX writing should be most of the time boring, unless you have very particular brand voice that is geared towards that sassiness. So if not done well, you end up with something like this that is really, really, really cringy, and I would not recommend doing that. Especially if this is your first time doing a content design challenge work. Stick with the plain language, stick with things that are just straight to the point, and you're gonna get way better results than whatever this is. I'm sweating looking at this. I am a bit embarrassed. Well, that was fun-ish. I'm a professional. I am very professional. I am good at my job. I am a great content designer. Now, I want to share you some final tips as you embark on the journey of doing this UX writing challenge. One thing I would highly recommend you to do is to document down the design process. Document down your thinking, the user flow, why you land to certain language choices here. A lot of companies have design challenges that's a part of the interviewing process. And most of the time, they would require you to document down your process. If you like a video on how I'd approach these design challenges, Let me know in the comments. Another way I would recommend to get the most out of these design challenges is to write in the voice and tone of different companies. How would you write it if you are an enterprise product at Microsoft versus how would you write it if you are the content designer for Duolingo? What about Airbnb? What about a nonprofit? You want to be a versatile content designer where you can learn about the brand's voice and apply that to different use case scenarios. The challenges themselves are not going to change. Every app is going to run into error scenarios. Every app is going to run into promotional screens, but the approach differs based on different brand identity. And gather your feedback and iterate on them. If you didn't get certain responses in the Facebook group for some of the challenges, don't worry. Bring it to real users. Bring it to your friend. Bring it to people who are not in the UX industry. Bring it to a mentor. Bring it to random people on the streets and see how they would react to it. You get to show your work and do some user research with real people that way as well. And definitely iterate on them once you have gathered these feedback. I wish I would have done that, but you know what? It's in the past, but you still have the opportunity to get that right. Woo! I am sweating. That's all I have for today. If you like today's video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I will see you next time. Bye! I am never doing this again.